Buddy. If you want another peek behind the curtain, you can just wait while I adjust my camera so that I actually look at the camera. It's a weird thing I do. I don't like looking at cameras. This week I also have my headphones on because I can't hear myself talk at appropriate levels and I don't want to be yelling at you all the whole time. And then also welcome back to my closet. There's a lot of alsos happening right now. Today is being brought to you by Red Plaid Jacket. It was dirty, and I washed it, and I haven't hung it up properly yet. So, enjoy. This after show, welcome to Almost Fiction After Show, because that's what this is, not an update on my life. This is the after show about a case that I covered. So, this one's about Melvin David Rees. He was the saxophone, piano, clarinet player. This was a weird episode. There wasn't a whole lot on it. It was mostly like 2 or 3 sources. A couple of those were pretty in-depth. Court documents. Someone wrote like a short story about it. There are no books on this. The thing that is probably the most annoying about this case is the fact that everybody contradicts each other. There were certain accounts I didn't even use because they were so contradictory to each other. I found a really good one, and it's in the notes. I'm sorry, I forgot the name. I'm sorry, but yes, it was a good account of what happened, and whoever did it did the research well. Her name is, like I said, is listed in the show notes of the original episode over on Spotify, Apple, wherever you. If you read the description, it's there. But she did a good job of going through and kind of fleshing out a lot of those inconsistencies. I had to do some of that myself as well. And I think that's why there's a handful of podcasts that have already covered this case, but I think part of that is literally because of the nickname he was given. And I think a lot of people try to play it up more than what it is, but he was called the Sex Beast by the newspapers when the story first came out. I think some people try to hit on that too much, and then they realize there's not a lot there, and so they kind of not make up, but maybe embellish things that might have happened or not happened. Like one of the things is, like there's actual sources out there that tried to say that, oh, he was born in England to like wealthy family and he was shipped out, and it's like the FBI went to his parents' house in Maryland. Like he didn't have some random he didn't have some random like wealthy aristocracy parents who just sent him to some random family in America for no reason. Like that doesn't make sense. There's way easier ways to get rid of children that you don't want. They're called boarding schools, especially if you already have a lot of money. Anyways, so a lot of people's stories, they contradict each other. And so it gets kind of annoying to do this case, and I'm sure that some of the stuff I've probably perpetrated, maybe a falsity here or there. I tried to make sure that everything was legitimate, but when you're dealing with cases this old and cases that have passed through this many hands, like original sources, like stuff happens. It just does. One of the other things, so like, and I pointed it out in the story, but there's some, things that some people say that David was out running people, or not David, I'm sorry, Melvin was out running people off the road in his car. Other people are saying that he never ran anyone off the road in his car. He was flagging people down. Maybe a mix of both. So it was just hard to try to, you just had to pick and choose, what best fit the facts, right? So there's some things that just don't fit the facts that were claimed to have happened, and so it's like, okay, that most likely couldn't have happened because it doesn't really fit, what we do actually know for sure. Another interesting story about this case is the psychic. So you have Peter Hurkos. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about him. He's done a lot of like TV shows back in the day, like older stuff. Like he was, I think he became psychic in like 1940 or something, but he was around in the 50s and 60s and 70s. He was on TV a lot. He was hanging out with celebrities a lot. Like he was pretty popular. He came in and made some claims. Some of them turned out to be true, but it's like he went and had these visions where he described the attacker, and those descriptions have been publicly available for a long time. So it's like, okay, maybe, maybe not. So he comes in, he starts touching things, and ooh, I did this. And I'm not saying psychics aren't real. I don't want to say that. I believe that some people have good intuition that borders on seemingly paranormal. I think a lot of that, though, is pattern recognition. I think that there are some people who feel things. I don't know what it is, where it comes from, but I mean, our whole world's made of energy, so if you can read that, good for you. But I also think there's a lot of people who just want fame and fortune, and they see it as an easy way, and they're smart, and they can read people, and so I'm not saying it's real, I'm not saying it's not real, but the Washington Post like to point out a bunch of the things that weren't real, that didn't happen in this case. They ridiculed Peter Hurkos on, like, they drug him out through the article. They said that he was a failure. And like some people want to point out that he said there was 9 victims, and there was 9 victims. There was the 4 Jacksons. There was Margaret, and then there were the 4 other things he was suspected of. 9. Well, 2 of those, somebody else, other people admitted to doing those. That's why I didn't include them. And then 2 of those were unsolved, and they assumed he might have been he was in the time, he was there at the right time, in the right place, but there was no evidence. I mean, you have to remember this is like the 50s, so scientific evidence is, very much not talked about or even known about at this time. So there weren't 9, even the psychic's biographer tried to say, oh, there were 9. No, it's really easy for me to just say, oh, Jeffrey Dahmer, he could have killed these people. He was there at the same time. That doesn't mean that he did it, right? So, yeah, that wasn't 9 people. He even got a freaking dude arrested, right? A garbage man. And, this dude is probably not a good person. I mean, the police already knew about him. They already had suspicions. And usually to be, like, high up on a murder list, like, and you didn't know the people, that means you probably had something in your past that, made people think it might have been you. Like, maybe you've already assaulted people before. Maybe you have already done something similar, right? But this dude gets arrested. He confesses. I think it's part of just something that got mixed up in the story, because, I mean, even the good sources say that this guy confessed and was arrested, and then nothing. Like, they don't talk about him. And I'm assuming he was released because he was arrested for the murder of the Jackson family, and, someone else, our Mr. Rees, was found guilty of that. And people try to say that Rees lived in the same house that this guy had lived in. There was nothing. I mean, it's really easy to look back at things, right, and then apply things to it. So I couldn't find anything about that. I don't think it's real, personally, but maybe. Who knows? There was something where supposedly, and this is the thing, this is all supposedly, right? You can't really find it. There's no proving it or disproving it. There's a part where the psychic claimed that he said that one of the victims had 31 teeth, and one of them only had 31 teeth. But guess what? A lot of people are missing teeth. Like, a lot of people. It's a lot cheaper to get your tooth pulled than a crown, just saying. Especially back in the day. I don't know why I'm whispering. I like to whisper too. So, it's just like, no. I don't get it. I don't believe it. Everything's in retrospect, right? Everything's 2020 when you look back at it. Some people, including his publicist, try to say that the psychic was right about this many things, and nah, it's all publicity. Sorry, I'm just reading notes here, and these are uncut, so you get to join along and hear my song. So here's another thing. I mean, this is the after show, right? We're talking about other things, whether they're speculation or things that didn't really pertain to the story. I try to keep my stories at a certain. I mean, some of them go long, but that's just what happens. But I try to keep everything, 35, 40 minutes, under an hour. And some things are not really important, not pertinent to the case. One of those things is that Melvin David Rees was in the 60s after he'd been in jail for a while, on his death sentence, was still there. He is sent in for psychiatric evaluation. During this time, this is around 1972 when the Supreme Court looked at the death penalty and the constitutionality of it. A lot of people were trying to, fight against that. People still try to fight against that. Good for you, bad for you, I don't care. Do you. What happened is they wanted to see if Melvin had any mental issues that he was dealing with. And it's hard because, like I said, there's not a lot on the dude himself, right? He was very secretive. What is known is he was a musician. He played gigs, worked in music shops. Sorry, I just burped in your ear. That was disgusting. Unedited. Once again, you have to deal with it. Anyways, so they wanted to see if he was schizophrenic, and I think there was I couldn't really find it. He was and wasn't. Let's just put it that way. So, it's not, you can't really confirm it. You'll be able to email me confirmation, and somebody else will be able to email me, the exact opposite. That's just how this case is. But, so he was diagnosed and not diagnosed with schizophrenia, and 1972 comes along, his death sentence is commuted. Every single death sentence in the United States was commuted and reevaluated because of the Supreme Court ruling. So they suspended all death sentences to evaluate the constitutionality of the death penalty. It was found to be constitutional because we still have it, obviously. The weird thing about his case is that his death sentence was never reinstated because there was the weird, is he or is he not schizophrenic? You had people fighting about that. Well, fast forward to the 90s, he still, let's remember that he wasn't just there for one sentence, right? He had multiple, he already had a life sentence and he had a death sentence. So they're holding him on his other life sentence, right, while his other death sentence is up in the air. So, it's pointless. The dude's in jail forever, and he's going to be in jail regardless of what happens. But it is interesting because later, after his death, the Supreme Court actually went back over the case because they didn't want to leave it open because it might be able to be used as precedents. So the Supreme Court went back and then just basically put a stamp on it that said that the person involved is dead. Case closed. So there's there's a certain term for it. It's Latin. I'm not smart. I don't know it. Starts with an M. Something with memory, and then him being dead and death and stuff. So that was gone. It's gone. Another thing that I wanted to touch on is there was a lot of appeals going on, and they weren't saying that they weren't appealing that he was innocent. They were appealing that the evidence used in the case was obtained fraudulently, therefore shouldn't be used, right? They never said that they never said, oh, he didn't do it, this evidence is trumped up. No, they know what the evidence is, and they know that it proves their client was guilty, so they tried to get it kicked out. So there was, confusion about, the FBI agents because they had a search warrant, but they still got a signed thing giving them permission. So search warrants only cover certain things, right? So if I'm a cop and think that you have something in your house, right? Let's say I think you killed your aunt's cousin's sister's dog with a shovel, and I think you have that shovel in your house. My search warrant is going to say, well, I'm looking for a shovel. That's it. That's it. There's no such thing as there are such thing as open search warrants, but those are not handed out very readily. So literally they have to say, I am looking for this, and it pertains to this that happened on this date. I'm looking for this evidence. I think I'm looking for a murder weapon that looks and smells and feels and acts like a shovel, right? Because I thought I had a witness, whatever it is. Usually a lot of these search warrants are specific. I'm looking for illicit drugs, okay? If they find, that you have an illegal chimpanzee in your house, they can come back and do another investigation, but they can't take that chimpanzee and say, like they can, like other things will happen, right? But you can't get in trouble for that chimpanzee. If they find drugs, then you can get in trouble for the chimpanzee. But if they don't find drugs, they shouldn't have been in your house in the first place. Okay, they can later get a search warrant, come back. Okay, and I'm sure somebody has a story about how that's bullcrap. And guess what? People, cops included, break laws and they overextend themselves. But I'm just trying to tell you how, at least as to my understanding, how the system is supposed to work, not how it does work. Anyway, so there's this big whole huge thing because they're trying to say that, well, this wasn't anybody's, so they couldn't have taken it and opened it without the permission of the actual owner whose name was on it. And it's just like, well, it was abandoned in someone's house in a place. This is what the actual, court document said. It was abandoned in a house. They had permission to search the whole house for anything that they might have thought. That's why I read the little sign, the thing that his dad signed. They were there. They could look for anything and everything that they thought might be part of a murder. So they find this case and it's hidden, right? Like it's hidden on purpose. It is in like a crawl space attached to an attic space behind a false panel. So it's like, and the homeowner owns the home and everything inside of it, okay? So they gave permission. Like the dad actually said, yeah, break it open. I don't care. Break it open. It's not mine. Like I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. It doesn't have my son's name on it, so I don't know what it is. You feel free to take it, right? Which is what like normal people would do, I feel. So that's what they did. And they broke it open. Inside, they find the stuff that nails Melvin to the wall. Okay? And so there was a constitutionality about that, even though his parents had signed over the rights. It was in their house. Like, he put it in their house. And, like, they tried to play all these little loopholes. Didn't work. So, and that's another thing is like the way that the agents went to the house is disputed. When they showed up, like there's one story they show up to the house, both parents are home. There's another story they showed up, nobody was home. They went to the neighbors and asked the neighbor, and I don't know why I'm moving my head like this. And they asked the neighbor, they waited at the neighbors, then the people got home, and when they got home, the neighbors went over and got them, brought them over, introduced them to the like there's all these weird things. Like no, regardless, okay, the FBI agents had a document that the parents signed and gave permission to search their home. That's it. It's done. Like, no matter how, you can't lawyer your way out of that. And they didn't. The appeal was denied. So, there's that. And, yeah, I'm just reading my notes. But this case was kind of weird. I personally think it turned out decent for the lack of information. I felt weird not writing about the killer more, but it's like there's not a lot there. But I also still think that this is an interesting case. I think everyone's cases deserve time in the spotlight. That doesn't always happen, and most of that's for lack of information. But yeah, I didn't want to focus too much on the sex beast part. Like, the dude was a pervert. But, like, most serial killers are perverts. Like, let's be honest. If you've listened to a lot of true crime, there's like, a lot of sexual, sexual whatever goes into a lot of these murders. So it's like, yeah, they're all sex beasts. Like, whoop-de-doo. But, it sold headlines, and that's what mainstream media does, is they, especially nowadays, they just sell headlines, and that's it. Screw everything else, right? Not political. We're not getting political. We're not getting political. We're not getting political. So, yeah, Melvin David Rees was a pervert, a musician. One thing I did want to, I didn't get too much into it. He considered himself like a philosophical type. He read a lot of, those fancy, weird foreign names that people always associate with philosophy. I'm not talking about like Socrates or anything like that. I'm talking about like Nietzsche or whatever the heck that dude's name is. But he read a lot of like, books like about like he would have been the dude that you went to school with who's always wearing that Che shirt, who doesn't even know like what Che actually did. Like he was that dude. Like he'd sit down and tell you like the kind of person who's like, well, actually, if you think about it, Stalin wasn't really that bad. Yeah, like that kind of stuff. Thought he was smarter than he was, tried to come off as an intellectual, and he wasn't. Dude was an idiot. I mean, he had his little photos that were instantly chased back to him. Like, let's be honest. Like, for as little evidence, and like let's give a shout out to like Glenn Moser for coming forward and saying my friend is a pervert and he's freaking weirdo. Like yeah, some people, well, that's not a good friend, he's not loyal. He's murdering children, okay? Like, just to play devil's advocate there. But I'm rambling now. Yeah, it was a good case. I liked it. I thought it was interesting. And yeah, that's it. I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate your support. If you could, please, and I know that most of you here have already done that, please review. I know it sounds really stupid, and I know like it's like the YouTube thing, like and subscribe, subscribe. Well, there's a reason for that. The reason is to help that channel grow. So yeah, like, subscribe. But if you could leave reviews on Spotify and Apple, wherever you listen. If you listen there, just go hit a review. Yeah, be nice, because I love you. Just be nice to me. But I can't wait to get in y'all's earballs again in the next episode, and your eyes balls too. You can see my eyes balls at least. So yeah, have a good one. Bye.